My name is Meline Brown, and for 30 years I had always believed that I was meant to follow in my father's footsteps, to help lead Brown Technologies, the family business that had been built from the ground up by my grandfather. I had spent my entire life preparing for this moment, sacrificing friendships, relationships, even my own happiness, all in the name of the company. I was born into this world where the expectations were high and failure was never an option. I had the education, the skills, and the drive, but it was never enough. Today, everything changed. It was a simple meeting with my father. Well, it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the moment I presented my proposal for the company's future, the culmination of years of hard work. But when I walked into his office that day, I knew it wasn't going to be like the others. Not when he turned to me with that look in his eyes. "You'll never be as good as your brother anyway," he spat, his words echoing through the mahogany panel walls of his office. The words hit me harder than I ever thought they would. I gripped the edges of my proposal, my knuckles turning white as I stared at my father, my heart pounding in my chest. Every dream, every late night, every sacrifice I had made to get to this point, all of it was nothing to him. My brother Jacob was the one who mattered to him. Jacob, who had barely passed his business classes, who had no interest in running the company, who spent more time playing golf than managing anything. But he was the son, that's all that mattered to my father. Jacob sat in the corner, fiddling with his phone, pretending not to hear our father tear my dreams apart. But he didn't have to hear it. He knew exactly what was happening. He had always known. He was just too much of a coward to stand up for me. "Dad, just look at my proposal," I pleaded, my voice trembling, but I forced myself to keep calm. "The market analysis is solid. The numbers are right there." He cut me off with a wave of his hand, dismissing me as easily as he had done countless times before. "I've already decided Jacob will take over as co-you next month. You should focus on finding a good husband. That's what your mother and I want for you." The words stung more than I ever imagined. How was it that everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, meant nothing to him? I felt a wave of heat rise in my chest, followed by a cold numbness. It was as if the world had shifted under me, and I was suddenly seeing everything with perfect clarity. I looked at Jacob. His face was flushed, uncomfortable, but he said nothing. He never did. "You're right," I said, surprising both myself and my father with my sudden calm. "I should focus on my future." His eyes lit up in triumph. "That's the spirit. Good girl." I turned on my heel, walked out of his office, and never looked back. The crumpled proposal still clutched tightly in my hands. Behind me, I heard him chuckle, probably thinking that he had won. He had no idea that the moment I stepped out that door was the moment I decided to declare war. The next few hours were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I had always prided myself on my sharp instincts, my ability to see what others missed. But tonight, my world had been turned upside down. Everything I had believed in had been shattered, and in its place was something colder, more dangerous. I sat at my dining table surrounded by industry reports, market analyses, and contracts. Everything I had learned in the past 10 years was laid out before me. My father had always thought I was just playing at this business, that I was just a curious daughter with no real talent for the world he inhabited. But what he didn't realize was that I had been preparing for this moment my entire life. As I sifted through the documents, it all clicked. Every meeting, every conference call, every strategy session with my father had been a game I hadn't known I was playing. But now I was ready to win. I'd spent years gathering information, learning the intricacies of Brown Technologies, and now it was all ammunition. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. "Your father means well. He just doesn't want you to get hurt. He's worried about you." I threw my phone down on the table. "He's worried about me?" I muttered to myself. My father wasn't worried about me. He was worried about losing control. The next morning, I walked into Brown Technologies for the last time. The familiar hum of the office felt suffocating, like I was walking into a tomb that I had been chained to for far too long. My colleagues avoided my eyes as I packed up my things. I could feel the whispers, the pity. They all knew what had happened. They knew that my father had once again chosen Jacob over me, despite everything I had done for the company. As I closed my laptop bag, Jacob appeared in the doorway. His face was flushed with discomfort, his eyes avoiding mine. "Dad says you're taking some time off. Focus on your priorities, he said awkwardly. I didn't even bother to hide my disdain. Save it, Jacob. We both know you don't want this job. You're only taking it because it's easier than standing up to him. Jacob flinched, but said nothing. I grabbed my box of personal belongings and left, not looking back. When I stepped outside, something inside me shifted. The weight of my father's expectations had been holding me down for so long, but now it was gone. I was free. Free to do whatever I wanted, and I was going to make him regret every single word he had ever said to me. Sam, my new life in Singapore was a whirlwind. I rented a small office space and began working tirelessly to build my own company, Novatech Solutions. I had no investors, no legacy, no backing, just the knowledge and determination to build something from nothing. My team was small but sharp. We were working on an AI-driven platform designed to revolutionize supply chain management. Every late night, every coding session felt like a victory. I was no longer just someone's daughter. I was building my own empire. The first major breakthrough came 6 months in. A prominent tech investor saw the potential in our prototype, and we secured funding. From there, everything fell into place. We expanded rapidly, and the momentum was unstoppable. I didn't tell anyone about my connection to Brown Technologies. As far as the world was concerned, I was just another tech entrepreneur with a vision. But deep down, I knew. Every success was a personal victory. Every new client, every new contract was another piece of evidence that I had made the right choice. And all the while, Brown Technologies was falling behind. My father's refusal to change, his stubbornness, was his company's downfall. As the months passed, I couldn't help but smile at the reports coming in. His company was losing market share. His clients were dropping like flies. And his old-fashioned business model was no match for what Novatech was doing. One day during a board meeting, we received some news that sent shockwaves through our office. My father had announced that Brown Technologies was planning to acquire several tech startups in an attempt to grow their market share. He was trying to buy his way out of trouble. But I had been waiting for this moment for far too long. This wasn't just business, it was personal. They'll be coming for us soon, my CFO warned during an emergency meeting. Schedule a meeting, I replied, my voice steady. I'll handle this personally. When my father walked into the conference room, he was flanked by his advisors, his face flushed with frustration. He didn't recognize the room, the sleek design, the modern conference table. Everything about this space was different from the mahogany offices he had spent decades building. He saw me at the head of the table, calm, poised. He froze. Meline, he muttered, his voice laced with disbelief. What is this? What game are you playing? No game, I replied, clicking the presentation remote. Just business. Novatech Solutions is my company. I built it, and now you want to buy it. The silence in the room was deafening. The room remained eerily quiet as my father's eyes scanned the room, taking in the sleek, modern surroundings, which contrasted sharply with the traditional, stuffy mahogany office he'd grown so accustomed to. I could see him struggling to comprehend the change. This wasn't just a business meeting, it was the reckoning he'd been avoiding for years. What is this? He finally managed, his voice sharp with disbelief. What game are you playing, Meline? No game, I replied, my voice steady, unwavering. I gestured to the screen behind me where the graphs and charts I'd worked so hard to create were displayed. Just business. Novatech Solutions is my company. I founded it, I built it, and now you want to buy it. His face drained of color. The confidence that had always been his armor melted away as the realization hit him like a freight train. For the first time in my life, I saw my father vulnerable, unsure. You couldn't have, he sputtered, his voice trembling. This is impossible. Impossible, I asked, raising an eyebrow as I pulled up a slide showing Novatech's growth charts. Is it impossible that I created a solution that's revolutionizing the industry? Or is it that I did it without your help? His advisors, who had been watching silently until now, exchanged glances, likely realizing the magnitude of what was happening. One of them cleared his throat and spoke hesitantly. Miss Brown, regardless of your personal connection to Brown Technologies, we are here to discuss a serious business proposition. Of course, I replied, keeping my composure. Let's discuss how my company has captured 40% of the market share in Asia. Or perhaps You'd prefer to talk about how our AI-driven platform has made your entire business model obsolete. For a moment, he was speechless. My words hung in the air, punctuated only by the low hum of the office's air conditioning. You did this to destroy me, my father's voice cracked, anger and desperation battling for control. Your own father? I didn't flinch. No, Dad. I did this because you taught me that being a woman meant I couldn't run a company. So I built one instead, one that's better than yours in every way. His face reddened, his pride crushed beneath the weight of my success. Name your price, he growled, his voice laced with frustration and fear. I stood up from my seat and walked around the table until I was standing directly in front of him. That's where you're wrong, I said calmly. This isn't about money. It never was. I paused, letting my words sink in. This company is my legacy, the one you refused to let me build with you, I continued. And now it's my success. And you're just another competitor who underestimated me. His hands balled into fists, but he didn't say anything. His power, his authority, was slipping away, and for the first time, I felt no fear, only relief. I stood tall as I met his gaze one last time. Your offer is declined. As my father stormed out of the conference room, red-faced and humiliated, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The weight of the years of doubt, the years of being dismissed and overlooked, lifted off my shoulders in an instant. My team looked at me in shock, but I didn't care. They didn't know the story behind the battle, the years of fighting for a seat at the table, but they would. As the door slammed shut behind him, I heard one of my executives murmur, "That was unexpected." I turned to face my team, the ones who had believed in my vision long before they knew my true connection to Brown Technologies. I am Walter Brown's daughter, I said, meeting their eyes. But more importantly, I'm the CEO of this company, the one who's going to take Novatech global. They looked stunned, but as I finished speaking, I saw their expressions shift. Respect, admiration, trust. In that moment, I knew that this wasn't just a victory for me. It was a victory for them too. They had supported me, and now, together, we would take on the world. The days following the meeting were a whirlwind of press releases, interviews, and meetings with potential investors. The news about my identity leaked to the media, and soon every major business publication was running stories about my rise from Walter Brown's daughter to the CEO of Novatech. Tech AAS disrupts family empire, the headline screamed. And with that, my name was no longer just a footnote in my father's shadow. It was a brand in its own right. But it wasn't just about the recognition. It was about proving that I was capable. I had built something from scratch, something that could change the way industries operated. The world was watching, and I was ready to show them what I could do. Boss, one morning as I sat in my office reviewing our expansion plans, my phone buzzed. It was Jacob. The first message in months. Dad's losing it, he wrote. The board is pressuring him to modernize, but he won't listen. He says he won't be bullied by some upstart company. I smiled at the irony. My father, the man who had spent years bullying me into fitting into his narrow vision of what a woman should be, was now being forced to change by the very thing he had dismissed. My company. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was a force to be reckoned with. Then came the first move. Brown Technologies' acquisition team reached out. The offer was generous, more than Novatech was worth on paper. It was exactly what I had been waiting for. The chance to prove that I wasn't just a businesswoman, I was a strategist, a visionary. Schedule a meeting, I told my executive team. I'll handle this personally. The day of the meeting arrived. The tension in the air was palpable. I had invited my father to meet with me, but I knew what I was going to do. It wasn't just about business. It was personal. When he walked in, I could see the shock on his face. The confident, arrogant man I had known my entire life stood frozen at the door, his eyes scanning the room, then landing on me. His daughter, the one he had dismissed. Meline, he muttered, his voice quivering slightly. What is this? What's impossible, I asked, my voice calm and steady. Is it impossible that I built something bigger than you, that I did it without you? He sputtered, unable to respond. For the first time, I felt the power shift from him to me. I was no longer his daughter, I was his rival, his biggest competitor. Name your price, he growled, defeated. I shook my head, stepping closer to him. It's not about money. It never was. I paused, letting my words sink in. This is about something you'll never understand. Legacy. My legacy. Twin. After the meeting, the office was alive with energy. My team was buzzing with excitement. They had seen the shift. They had seen what I was capable of, and now they were ready to follow me wherever I would lead. I smiled to myself as I looked out at the Singapore skyline. My father had underestimated me, but I had built something far more valuable than his company. Novatech was no longer just a company, it was a revolution, and I was its leader. 6 months after my father's forced retirement, we held a global technology summit. Industry leaders from around the world gathered to discuss the future of supply chain management. I was the keynote speaker. My grandmother sat proudly in the front row, beaming with pride. Innovation isn't about following traditions, I said, addressing the packed auditorium. It's about having the courage to challenge them. The irony wasn't lost on anyone when I announced our latest breakthrough, an upgrade that would make traditional systems like Brown Technologies completely obsolete. My father's legacy was gone and mine had just begun. But as the summit ended, I felt a sense of closure. My father's company was crumbling, and Novatech was soaring. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was. Not Walter Brown's daughter, Meline Brown, the innovator who had turned the tech world upside down. The months that followed were a whirlwind of success and growth. Novatech continued to rise, its reputation growing with every new client that signed on. Our platform was now the standard in supply chain management, and competitors were scrambling to catch up. The media attention was relentless, and every day felt like a new victory. But amid the celebration, something inside me had shifted. I no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. Not my father, not the industry, not even myself. As the company expanded into Europe, I realized that the work I was doing meant more to me than just business. It was about something deeper. It was about breaking free from the constraints that had held me back for so long. It was about showing the world that women could lead, that women could innovate, and that we could create legacies of our own. But in the quiet moments when I sat in my office overlooking the Singapore skyline, I couldn't help but think about my father, about how he'd once made me feel small, insignificant, and incapable. I had spent years battling for his approval, only to realize that my true success came from breaking free of his shadow. I wondered if he ever regretted underestimating me, if he ever realized what he had lost when he pushed me aside, choosing tradition over innovation. A message from Jacob came one day, an unexpected olive branch. Dad's finally retiring for good. It's all over. He's just gone. I'm sorry, Meline, for everything. His words felt hollow, but a part of me appreciated the gesture. Maybe, after all, we both found freedom in different ways. I had conquered my father's expectations, and Jacob had escaped them. I continued to grow Novatech, and the industry began to recognize my work as something revolutionary. My team was like family, and they trusted me because I had earned their respect. They didn't see me as Walter Brown's daughter anymore. They saw me as Meline Brown, the CEO who had built something from the ground up. The day of the global summit, when I stood before the world's most influential leaders in tech, was the culmination of everything I had fought for. My grandmother, sitting in the front row, was beaming with pride. The same woman who had shown me what true strength looked like. She had been my greatest supporter, even when the rest of the world doubted me. And as I announced our latest breakthrough, one that would make traditional systems obsolete, I realized that my legacy was no longer tied to my father's company. It was mine. I had built it. I had earned it. As the summit came into a close, I caught sight of my father, relegated to the back pages of the business world, a shadow of the man he once was. His company was struggling, there were market share slipping, and the board had forced him into early retirement. The irony wasn't lost on me. His traditional approach to business had been swept away by innovation, something he had never believed in. I had won, not because of money, not because of the accolades, but because I had proven that I was capable of creating something better, something that would endure. Later that night, as I sat alone in my office, I reflected on everything that had led me here. The years of doubt, the years of striving for approval, the endless struggles and setbacks. But in the end, I had found my own path. I had built something that was truly mine, and I had done it without him. There was a message waiting for me when I checked my phone. It was from Jacob. I sold my shares in Dad's company, started something new. I'm finally doing what makes me happy. For the first time, I feel free. I smiled to myself. It seemed like we both had found our freedom. As for my father, I knew he'd spend his days in his study, staring at the walls of his crumbling empire, wondering what went wrong. But for me, that was the price of underestimating me. The price of believing that tradition and birthright mattered more than innovation and determination. In the end, I didn't need his approval. I never did. I had my own approval, my own company, and my own future. For those of you reading this, take this lesson to heart. Don't let anyone define your worth. Whether it's family, society, or even your own doubts, don't let them dictate your future. Build your own legacy. Prove them wrong, not by showing them their mistakes, but by showing yourself what you're capable of. And for those of you who have faced the same struggles, who have been told you can't achieve your dreams because of who you are or where you come from, remember this. You are capable of more than they could ever imagine. Keep fighting, keep building, and most importantly, trust in yourself. What do you think? Have you ever faced the kind of challenge I did? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. Let's share our journeys and support each other in the fight for the future we deserve.